Hi guys, my name is Clive Lindop. I'm the lead AI designer at Operation Flashpoint 2. I'm going to take you through some of the key features. Stylistically, we have a much more mature audience than we had in 2001. Guys now see war, every evening on TV. So we've had to adopt something that's much more a documentary, war reportage style, so that we could sort of bring the gritty realism we want to deliver to the audience. Very much experiencing war from the ground up. Now, the setting of the game itself is a place called Skira Island. It's north of Japan, and it's part of a chain of islands called the Sakhalin Islands. Now, it's one of those crossroad places in history. It used to belong to China, then it was taken over by Japan, and then at the end of World War II, liberated by the Soviet Union, who kind of forgot to give it back. And this would have not meant a lot. It would have been a real backwater of history, except very recently it's been discovered that there's a huge untapped natural resource of petroleum and gas underneath it, one of the largest in the world. And now everybody's really interested. The island itself is 220 square kilometres, or 134 square miles of land. That's not including the sea. It takes 4.5 hours to walk across it in real time in the game. About 2 hours driving in a reasonably fast Jeep, or in the fastest aircraft, 20 minutes to fly. We sent our photographers and our researchers actually out to the island chain to gather reference to make sure that we create an environment which is as believable as possible. This is our in-game assets without the shaders running. We want to show you the density of content versus the original game. There's much more cover, there's much more a believable environment to exist in, especially the natural environment. In addition, what we're seeing here is a Russian farmstead. Nothing's been designed by mission designers or level designers. These are all real places on the island. And the reason for that is we really wanted the player to feel not only that the place was real, but we weren't funneling the player into certain tactical choices or decisions. It's a completely open environment, and it's a real place. So you fight the way you need to fight, and as a real infantry commander would in that environment. Now, a £2,000 bomb makes an enormous amount of mess out of buildings and things like that. So we have a building destruction system, multi-stage, multi-sectioned. But also all the objects in the environment are damageable, and some have multiple damage states. One of the things we wanted to do with that was that this is all persistent. So throughout the entire mission and through the entire campaign, if it's blown up, it stays blown up. And the reason for that is we want to show the attrition that modern warfare and all that firepower has on an environment. Now, in the original game, the soldiers are a bit clone-like. And we've really pushed hard to do as many unique characters as we can, more than we really need, because we really want you to feel that there's an identity there for every soldier you're talking to. And from a gameplay point of view, it makes it a lot easier to command somebody if you recognise them. This is one of our in-game heads, so it's a high lodge. You'd see it about 10 feet when you're talking to a guy. And we really want to put personality into these guys so you could feel you had a relationship with them. Of course, motion capture was done using military professional special forces guys, but the amount of motion capture is a whole other thing. We've got specific sequences for mounting particular vehicles, interacting with all the objects in the terrain, and also with all the weapon systems. There are no magic pockets in this game. You have to carry it, you have to assemble it, and it's really assembled, switch it on, mount it on your shoulder, and go through the firing sequence. It's all faithfully replicated. And the reason for that is we really wanted the weapon to feel like it was genuine. It wasn't a magic wand for bullets, it was actually a big, heavy weapon. So obviously we were talking about all the research the guys have done and collected, and we put that into the fidelity of our simulation and all the different weapon systems.
The 5.56mm NATO round is a steel-jacketed, high-velocity round. It covers 1,000 feet in just 0.3 seconds. It will reach you before you hear the shot. The M67 frag grenade turns from this into thousands of lethal pieces of white-hot shrapnel in 0.02 milliseconds. You'll be dead before you can blink. The Javelin is a 127mm self-guided anti-tank missile. It will cover 1.5 kilometers in 7 seconds. Penetrate a vehicle's solid steel armor up to 600mm thick. And vaporize everyone inside.
Now, obviously, with all these different complicated weapon systems, we've had to model all the individual weapon interfaces so you can actually go through the full firing sequence. There are over 70 infantry weapons in the game. Anti-tank, anti-aircraft, all with different scopes and fittings that they can have, automatic grenade launchers, and that detail is extended into the vehicles. There are 50 vehicles, land, air and sea, all fully, faithfully simulated with all their strengths and weaknesses. The player has to learn their roles and how they're used. The vehicles themselves, we've modelled all the components, the weapon systems and how they deploy and fire, all the crew positions, passenger positions, the performance of the vehicle and different terrain types, as well, of course, as looking at the aircraft here. This is the Special Forces UH-60. Now, one of the things that we actually do is keep up to date with all the changes in technology. On the back here is the infrared baffle, the latest one developed in Afghanistan for defeating anti-aircraft missiles. Of course, the player spends most of his time inside the vehicle, so we put a lot of effort into making sure the interiors are faithful and as detailed as we can. And then finally, FX, and I'll just let this play. Okay, we're going to slow this down. This is what we call our multi-stage FX system, which allows us to model over milliseconds this particular detonation or usage of a particular munition. As you can see, with all the different types of vehicle, I think the player can really look forward to seeing some cool toys.